So we are back with Kevin and Lue, the dynamic duo of the award Grammy-winning band Blood Through the Window, who has agreed to go on tour again here soon. But we got a couple of comments on the YouTube video, and I don't know if you looked at them, Lou, but one of them said the worst MRE shit is the one you can't take because you're so stopped up, and I thought you'd appreciate that. Um, but someone else asked, a friend of mine, and I asked Kevin this, and I'll definitely get your opinion on this too. And Kevin, you can chime in with what you said as well. But they stated, I'd love to know what these guys and other Afghanistan slash Iraq Marines think of the documentary Combat Obscura, especially since they're combat correspondents, and how, I gotta click on it, sorry, and how the perspective of the documentary was shot. So have you seen Combat Obscura or any documentaries about Iraq, perchance?
I have not. I think the closest thing to like our era that I've seen um was this short like in or kind of an indie film about the Battle of Haditha.
Yeah. We were just talking about Battle of Haditha. I saw that movie too. I think that was the only one I watched also, because it was on the share drive on Ship, in 2009. It was on there, so I watched it, and it was different. I had some opinions about it. It was unrealistic in a lot of ways, but I mean, that did happen, so it's not like I'm gonna deny that. I think their depiction of it was very Hollywood.
Right.
But yeah, I'm the same. I haven't watched Combat Obscura. I was telling Zach before, I haven't really watched anything like that. I don't think I should, it's for the same reason I'm not a photographer anymore. I was a photographer since I was 8 years old, and I did it through the Marines, and it really just burned me out. And the reasons it burned me out are the reasons I don't think I should watch that. So.
Well, on the topic of this, unless Lou, you have anything to add, by all means chime in. Um, Outside of documentaries, I know we mentioned this briefly, but have you guys read books about your time in Iraq written by fellow Marines from the same time frame? And if so, how did that come along with your personal experiences and encountering what is stated in the pages of those memoirs or even history books?
Go ahead, Lou.
I've only read two. One was by actually the combat correspondent that ended up replacing me. Um, we didn't get to this point chronologically, but while Kevin and the other combat corps or the combat cameramen were all doing 14 months, us CCs were attached at the battalion level, so we were coming with the battalion and going back with the battalion. But they didn't have at the time. This would have been about when I initially got the news about the end of August. They were like, "Yeah, we don't have anybody to come out with 3-6, so it's likely you're gonna have to stay out there. We'll make sure we give you your 2 weeks and stuff like that." But and I'm like, at this point, my family thinks I'm coming home. They are gearing up for that, and I'm like trying to figure out how I'm gonna break the news to them that I'm not, that I'll come home for 2 weeks and then I got to go right back out. Um, but yeah, and then this combat correspondent stepped up to the plate and came out with 3-2, or sorry, 3-6, and yeah, and I got to go back with the battalion. So um, yeah, I read his book. I don't think he'll have a problem with me plugging it. But it's volunteers. I'm sorry, I got this blur on. Let me take the blur off so you can see it. There you go. Volunteers Growing Up in the Forever War by Jerad Alexander. Great writer, great correspondent, great human being. Um, so yeah, I read that, and I mean his writing is just so good. And he does a great job. I mean, he follows like basically his life story and how kind of being in the forever war era like affected our generation, um, from almost like the early on sort of Americana essentially propaganda stuff that kind of gets fed, leading into the decisions to join. Why do we volunteer? A lot of us join for different reasons, and yeah, it's a great read. Um, I think I mean, I know it's accurate because I know the man that wrote it. So, and the things that he talks about, I know happen for sure. So, hopefully one day maybe we can get him on. You can get him on here. He'd be a great one.
Kevin, what about you? As a combat cameraman, I know you and I talked about this. I think off the record. I don't think it's on recording. But what about you? Books yourself that you've read on the era?
There was a we were lucky about 325, or they said we were lucky. And then I actually read the one he just plugged as well. When it came out, a friend of mine recommended it to me because we were talking about, just my personal opinions and the politics and everything. And he was like, "Oh, you should read this guy." And I was like, "Oh, I know that guy. I actually met him a couple times." So it was really interesting to go through his book. I mean, he just covered it, so I'm not going to go into that. But I think you have read. They said we were lucky about 325 as well. So, if anyone was wondering about that, yeah, I'm not going to go into it. There it is. I would recommend reading it if you have the fortitude. You know. That's
So
really it. I've stayed away. I read a lot of military history, Civil War, Revolutionary War, but nothing modern. I try to stay away from it. I like, yeah.
nerd,
Go
we're definitely gonna have to talk about some Civil War books on the
ahead.
podcast, though, dude. We'll
Yeah, I
geek
have
out about
tons of.
that.
I got shelves and shelves and shelves. So
Well,
none of
and
that
so
Jeff Shara shit either. So
last off the script question, even though none of this is scripted, but you guys know what we're going to talk about. Have either of you, I know Kevin, we are in the plans, but before this, have either of you ever considered writing your own memoirs, either for your family, privately, or even perhaps publicly to get it published about your own personal experiences and the effect it had on you?
I've considered it. I don't know where to start. It's like one of those things where it's like I'm gonna write a book someday, and then someday, may never come. So, I don't know. I mean, to be honest with you, I'd actually would rather like possibly continue on platforms like this and talk about things in this format as opposed to writing a book.
I'll take that W.
I've been told many times over the years, just being the good Southern boy I am, I'm kind of a natural storyteller. So I'm really good telling bullshit stories to anybody who listens. But I've told some real serious ones too, and some that meant things to me, whether they were serious or not. And I've been told many times over, the last 20 years, you should write this, you should write this, you should write this. And I've always said the same thing. I think I said it to you when we first started talking about, nobody wants to hear my shit. I think honestly, the truth was I didn't want to hear my shit. Until we started talking here. I never really talked to this in depth about it. I mean, I don't want to name my town or anything, but I'm in a college town in Southern California. There's like not a lot of good old Southern veterans around here. So it's yeah. Anyway, kind of lost train of thought there. But I think you know where I was going with it. So
Well, hopefully we get down that road. Maybe I somehow convince the two of you through this to take this to pen and paper and, honestly push you
yeah.
guys in that direction or whoever else. But let's get into what we planned today. Um, I love jargon. The reason I say that is that, I bring jargon into my classroom for World War II, Korea, Vietnam, just to look at how it changes in such a short span of time, but also how much changes within the Marine Corps in that period. So for you guys, when you guys enlist, the times that you get into Iraq, or even for you, Kevin, in Haiti, what kind of jargon is being tossed around in this frame from 2003 to 2006?
I would say the typical Marine Corps jargon for the most part, but I never said most of that stuff seriously. You asked me if I ever called a water fountain a scuttlebutt. Yeah, I did in the most sarcastic fucking way you can imagine. I mean, I was like, oh, I'm going to use the scuttlebutt. I mean, I never said it like that. More than anything, I think kind of what confuses people listening to us talk are the acronyms. There everything's an acronym from the equipment we use to our SOP to our maneuvers. Everything's a fucking acronym. I'm sorry. Everything's an acronym. So it can be really confusing. I think as far as like slang goes, I remember calling people an asshat a lot back then. Asshat was big. We were all quoting Team America like nobody's business. What else? There was a lot of shows that were big back then. I know Lost had just started in 2004. I was a big Lost fan, and yeah, I was all about Lost, so I was quoting it. Friends was still like recently off the air, so we all watched Friends constantly, and that was still a thing. So there were a lot of Friends references. But as far as like jargon and language goes, aside outside the typical Marine Corps stuff you can think of, it was a lot of cussing and a lot of acronyms.
Yeah, I mean, I particularly hung on to phrases that I liked. Like unfuck yourself, I think was one that I truly enjoyed and I've recently started saying that more often actually. Um, gosh, as far as jargon itself, yeah, I would call the head, the bathroom the head.
Yeah.
Um, for me though, if it sounded corny, like some do, like some of the like I never said scuttlebutt ever. I was just say
That has a
talking,
dual meaning too.
and
It's
it does,
it's
yeah. And the other one would, for me, I
like
would just say
rumors.
talking shit.
Yeah, yeah, rumors and stuff like that. Yeah.
So, yeah, if it didn't, I don't know. To me, if it wasn't cool, I wasn't gonna say it. If it seemed corny, um, I left and right is left and right to me, not starboard and port. We're not on a fucking ship sometimes. If we are on a ship, then yeah, it makes sense. But
I still said right and left.
yeah, it's right and left. This is again, we're not if we like, especially if we're in country, like we're not on a fucking ship, man. Like that's left, that's right. So, um, yeah, some other phrases like Semper Gumby. That would be probably said more sarcastically.
Yeah. Hey, how about the Blue Falcon? You know about the Blue Falcon,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
Do you know what Blue Falcon is, Zach?
Lay it on me, man.
It's a buddy fucker, man. The guy who fucks his buddy. He's either eating all the chow or taking the last whatever. He doesn't spread the word and everyone misses out on something good. It's the buddy fucker. He lies to the gunny and says, "Oh, I didn't do that. It was so and so." Or yeah,
He's a
if
snitch.
someone's late for formation in the morning, that the general rule, if someone's late for formation when the gunnies or whoever is like, "Oh, where's so and so?" Everyone's like, "Oh, he's at dental or he's at medical." That's how it goes. But there's always that one fucker who's just like, "Oh, he's sleeping in up in his bedroom," and it's just like that's the buddy fucker. That's the Blue Falcon.
Up in his bedroom, that made me think of the rack.
Yeah,
I love saying the rack for some damn reason, man. And I think my buddy Steven, he has like a really cool like Southern drawl. He's just one of the coolest dudes ever. And I remember when we were in boot camp, he didn't realize that the drill instructor was like within earshot of us, and he said like we had been out all day, and he's like, "Man, I can't wait to hit the rack, man." And and then the drill instructor was like, "Oh, you can't wait to hit the rack, huh?" And from then on, like I don't know, something in that like stuck with me. So yeah, always call bed the rack or going to bed, hitting the rack.
I like
Well,
to call people boot a lot. I do that. I still, all my friends, even in the USMC forum on Reddit, in our USMC, if I'm talking on there and some guy's like, "Hey, I'm a gunny, I'm in right now," and blah blah blah, it's like, "Oh, you fucking boot," I
Yeah,
take
now it's sarcastic, right? Like
I take every opportunity to call everybody a boot, man.
I think I might have said something to Neil when, yeah, because I went to his first sergeant promotion, and I may have dropped like, you're still boot to me though, right?
I called him a boot at
Like-
his retirement. Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, again, like that's all kind of sarcastically now, but yeah, while we were in, for sure, if you did boot things, you got you got called a boot.
And you get called devil dog under one circumstance and one circumstance alone. When you fuck up, you're not getting called devil dog because you did a good job. You
Yeah, and
get
that's
devil,
some
we call it getting devil dogged.
yeah,
It's when somebody's chewing your ass. Hey, devil. They always start out like that. You never got called, hey, devil dog, good job. You don't hear that.
and that's something that I think some civilians and some civilians that are connected to the military don't quite get. They'll say like, "Congratulations, Devil Dog," and I'm like, that feels like a slight.
The fuck you call me?
There you Devil Dog. You want to knife hand me too?
Yeah. Yeah, there's the
Uh,
knife hand too. That's another thing is that,
yeah, the knife
when you're
hand
getting
is
fussed at, it's the
up in your
knife.
face. They put this.
So did you guys ever knife hand anyone that you considered a boot and or anyone when you were in country for any infractions that you can recall?
It's sarcastically. Again, that was a drill instructor thing, and like you really fucked up and your staff NCO was in your face screaming, usually because they were on the drill field. That's very much a drill instructor thing in my experience. He may have knife handed all kinds of people. I don't know.
Just out there knife handing
He's the
everybody.
type, yeah.
Yeah, just throwing knife hands around. No, I mean, I didn't. So I had the opportunity to, for sure. Like, after I got home from Iraq, they had a what's what, and this is yeah, I guess this would be another jargon thing, a boot drop, and a boot drop is just you get an influx of new Marines to your unit, and that happened for Second Marine Division PAO, because they were trying to like just rebuild up our forces that we had. I say forces for PAO. It's so fucking funny. Um, but um, but yeah, they were trying to just rebuild up because you had a lot of people getting out. You had people sort of in the middle. And I ended up um, just spending the rest of my time after I got back from Iraq training up other Marines to go, which was kind of annoying because I
Yeah.
hated being at Camp Lejeune. And yeah, ended up kind of because of certain circumstances. I ended up, as far as staying back in the rear with the gear, I ended up being the senior, um, not just enlisted, but senior ranking public affairs Marine for Second Marine Division, a corporal.
That's cool.
Damn, that's
Were
a
they
They,
paying
heavyweight
you?
boot.
Were they paying
yeah,
you for the billet? No.
right, exactly. Like, yeah, go handle all that. But the good thing is, I mean, they didn't leave me out in the lurch. Like, so they pulled me up with 2 MEF, which is Marine Expeditionary Force, um, just a step higher than division. And I had a master gunny there and a lieutenant colonel. So I still was like handling all the Second Marine Division business, but if it was like higher level, then it went to the master guns of the lieutenant colonel. Um, yeah, and they were decent people. They got nothing
Hell
bad to
yeah.
say.
That's honestly kind of badass to be over to be the senior NCO of Second Mardiv PAO. That's a big shoes to fill there for the history of the Second Mardiv. Um, but with the slang words and jargon, that got me thinking too. And I know you guys are going to be open about it, but I know you guys have talked about the Mujahideen. And when like I remember as a kid in this time period of 2005, it was the Taliban or Al Qaeda or Al Qaeda. So talk to me through, and Kevin and I have talked about this, and of course in some of the memoirs there too. But why the Mooj? Why did that name stick for you guys in Iraq? What was the purpose behind that? What's the history behind that? Why do people not know the difference today?
I think
There's
it's
there's so many religious extremists out there, and they all hate each other. Much like everywhere else in the world, they all clash, constantly. So the Mujahideen was just who we were fighting in the area we were in. To my knowledge, Mujahideen fought ISIS. The Mujahideen fought Al Qaeda. They all fought each other. Yeah,
they would
they
give us
weren't friends.
intel. They would give us intel on each other.
Yeah, yeah, they absolutely did. Yeah.
It's like, all right, my enemy
No,
of my enemy, right? Like,
I
So
mean, yeah, it's hard to tell.
to build off of that, how would that work, Lou? Where they would give intel off each other? Would they just approach and be like, "Hey, this is what I can tell you about this organization and where they're currently operating at in your AO"? Like, how does that go down?
I mean, I don't have any like, I wasn't taking calls or anything like that, but my understanding of it was that they would call in, and just anonymously tip, like, hey, here's a Al Qaeda strong house or whatever, arms house, go fuck it up. Um, the Iraqi insurgents are planning an attack tomorrow. And, to my understanding, some of it was bullshit. They were trying to get us to go certain places, and others were legit. And, it's just like any intel,
There,
you're
there
gonna,
were tip hotlines. I mean, we did leaflet drops all the time. Whenever we would invade a city or something, we'd fly a plane over and drop thousands, put little leaflets, and it would basically say whatever to the effect of, "Hey, we're coming. You need to get out of the town. You need to
yeah,
evacuate. Here's a phone number. We will reward you if you give us intelligence, and we'll pay them. We'll pay them for it. And if it plays out, we did pay them. I saw it paid out many times, and I see no shame in that. Like buying intelligence, it's no, it's safer than seeking it out. Like as an intelligence gatherer, I can tell you that firsthand. It was really dangerous doing what I did. I think Lou told a story about being in a helo that got shot at. I was in a CH-46 that got shot. I was laying on the back ramp taking, I would lay off with, my upper portion of my body hanging over the edge of the ramp and just take photos. And I just felt wet all of a sudden. I was like, what the hell? And there were pallets of water in the helicopter, and they had taken shots, and all the water just rushed up on me. So we uh we would much rather pay for intelligence. We would much rather get a phone call, an email, or just watch the news and figure it out for ourselves. We didn't have Geraldo telling us anything like we should have. But yeah, there were many ways for them to get up with us, and they did. It wasn't mostly the Mujahideen telling on the other guys. A lot of it was just civilians, who were either needed the money or they were just tired of everything going on or whatever their personal motivation was.
Well, to go off of that too, you mentioned the payout there. How much was these intel tips paying for civilians that came forward?
How good are they at negotiating? We're not going to be like, hey, here's your money. We'll be like, what do you think you deserve for that? And just go from there. If they say $1,000, we'll work from there. If they say $50, we'll work from there. I wasn't one of the people who did that negotiation, but I mean, we weren't going to just give a flat rate. You know what I'm saying? That's dumb. I think any corporation, dare I say, any corporation's not going to do that. Um, so yeah, there's no starting fee. There's negotiations. That's it.
Well, and taking that, unless Lou has anything to add off of that, and going back to the original concept of jargon, what kind of slang words or just abbreviations would you refer to as Iraqi civilians? What would they, different names there, as long as you guys feel comfortable going down that route?
I mean, if, do I say it? Do you want me to say it?
Go
Haji
ahead,
would
man.
Haji would be
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
I think that's the only one I really heard. And I think, more often than not, if you hear someone call an Iraqi civilian a Haji, it meant that that person was new to country. Once you had been in country for a while, I stopped calling them after like 3 months because mainly I found out what a Haji actually is. It's someone who's made the pilgrimage to Mecca. So, there was one time when everyone around me was referring to the civilian who was talking to us, trying to give us intel. They kept saying, "Oh, this Haji, he's Haji this, Haji that." And the guy was like, the whole time he's like, "No, no Haji, I'm not a Haji. Like, what are you talking about?" And he was so confused that he ended up leaving. So it's like it's questionable whether we should be using these or not. It definitely wasn't meant to be, it's not an insulting word, but I think it was meant to be, slang or just not degrading necessarily, but it wasn't used properly for obvious reasons. Just like every other war has had their dirty words they use for the people. But I tried to show the utmost respect to the Iraqi people. They were good people. So I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I mean, I heard probably worse words when I came home.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard worse in the US than I ever heard there.
Wow.
Same with Islamophobia and stuff like that. I've heard way worse here in the US than I ever did overseas.
Well, and it's like going off of the Islamophobia. I remember a lot of that as a kid, posters and stuff that were put around my hometown of how to spot a terrorist. And that's a
Yeah.
whole conversation for another day. But with the jargon, I think it's important and the slang words to discuss and talk about, especially when people are going to listen to these interviews, because they are. I mean, we're getting views and comments of what do these acronyms mean. What do these words mean, good, bad, or for worse, or the shenanigans that come with it? And so to go off of that with you two specifically, Lou, I'm going to pick on you for a moment. As a correspondent, I know that my Vietnam correspondent friends, they carried notebooks in the field with them. Little, like I said, showed the other day, little notebooks that prime example that Steve would make his notes in about people that he had interviewed. So what process did you go through on operations? Did you have a notebook or a little pen and pencil that you take to write into? How'd you go about gathering the stories you would eventually end up writing?
Oh yeah, I mean, I had these little kind of like forward flipping notebooks. They're a little bit bigger than that. I had a I had a pouch up front that I would stick my smaller notebook in. That would be I would use that for captions, like just names, hometowns, age, things like that. But when it came to the actual interviews, then I had my um, larger notebooks that I would just shove into my cargo pocket and carry that around. And I would do the interviews right out there and just try to handwrite everything. I also had little digital recorders that I would record interviews on, just to make sure that I was getting everything right. And also so that I didn't have to transcribe every little thing that a person said. Um, you know, so in that case, the notebooks a lot of times were not necessarily used for quotes, but used for information about like, what was this operation? What were we doing? How many casualties? Things like that. Um, so yeah, that was my process. I would take everything down. Um, I didn't have a Panasonic Tough book. I had uh, a ThinkPad, which was flimsy as hell. Nothing against. I think it's Dell. Maybe that does ThinkPads. Is that right? What is it? Yeah, it's Dell. I'm on a Dell right now, so
It was an IBM ThinkPad. I
IBM
remember those.
ThinkPad.
I
Yeah,
remember
yeah,
those nasty things y'all had with the red little ball in the center.
yeah.
It was always
Well,
furry.
great thing to use in Iraq. Like gets dirty really quick, really thin. So a lot of times I kept that in the rear, and then when I got back, that's when I would write my stories. Sometimes, if I wanted to get ahead of myself, I would start writing the story in my little notebook ahead of time, so that way when I got back, all I had to do was type it up. Um, yeah, and that was the process, really, man. Because again, I couldn't take the laptop with me on operations or outside of the wire because it was just a risk to get broken. And also, I didn't have necessarily a way for me to send it directly back. I didn't have a satellite like Kev did. Now, once I was with Kevin and he had the satellite, I was like, this is awesome. Like, just to be able to send stuff like, I was like, I remember the first time being like, it was at night when we were cuddled on our mat. And he's up there doing his thing. And I was like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, I'm sending these back. And I'm like, what? How did you do that? Use satellite. And I'm like, oh, wow. It's like a caveman, like discovering fire for the first time. But yeah, that was my process. Yep.
Well, so I asked Kevin this, and then I'll take this back to Kevin again for this interview about, what he carried specifically, how he documented his photographs. But, for you, Lou, and Kevin, this is a question I don't think I asked you. With the Vietnam generation that did the exact work you guys did, for example, Bernie Bernstein. They wrote articles, and like I showed this earlier, the sea tigers that were published in country. So, first question, was there any newspapers that were published in country to the Iraq War, or any kind of like um, website people perhaps go to where they could find stories that had been published, or anything like on a shared drive there that they could access? Secondly, was there any stipulations as to what you could write about in country? Anything that was off limits that was specifically a no-go?
Yes. So to answer the first part of your question, um, well, I'll answer the last part first then. As far as what we could or couldn't write about, we couldn't preemptively write about anything. We only wrote about things that already happened, like in the sense that I couldn't say, "Hey, this operation is coming up, and this is what's going to be happening." You know, that was the big thing. Anything that would jeopardize movements, anything that would jeopardize Marines' lives, um, was obviously off limits. So yeah, no, like preemptively, like this is coming down. Uh, you know, join us for join us for Operation whatever. And so that was. And what was the first part of your question?
Going off the first part of that is like the Vietnam guys, they had a newspaper published in country
Oh,
called Sea Tiger. Did you guys in OIF have any newspapers or magazines that were published in country, or like perhaps a website or a forum of stories that were uploaded, or even the shared drive being used there?
newspaper wise, what I would actually do, as far as like I kind of had, it wasn't necessarily like my own little fob paper. But if I had a story, make USMC.mil was the big website. Um, and from USMC.mil, that's where other publications would pull our stories from. We would also market our stories to hometown newspapers. And a lot of times I was doing that directly from Iraq, like calling up a local newspaper. If I wrote about a guy from Lexington, Kentucky, I'm going to reach out to the Lexington, Kentucky Gazette or whatever the newspaper is there and say like, hey, I just wrote a story about, a guy from your hometown or a guy from your town. And, um, he's out here in Iraq. Figured it'd be something you'd be interested in. And if they said, yeah, and most of the time they would at least say, yeah, to look at it. Sometimes they would take it and rewrite it, put their name on it, stamp on it. Other times they would take it as is. Most of the time they took it as is. Um, and yeah, so USMC.mil, Leatherneck Magazine was another big one that we would send out to. Um, Stars and Stripes. A lot of times people would think that we were writing for Stars and Stripes specifically, like, oh, he writes for Stars and Stripes. I'm like, no, they're all civilians now, or former Marines, um, former military people who are working there now. But yeah, they would take our stuff and publish it, and then the base newspapers back home, like the Globe at Camp Lejeune, Windsocket, Cherry Point. Don't know what I've never was in Pendleton or anything. So yeah, but they had base newspapers and they would run our stuff. And yeah, so what I would do is if I had something printed out or published somewhere, I would print it out and then put it up on the wall in the Combat Operations Center or the COC, considering that we were also talking about acronyms earlier. And yeah, that way people could see one, that I was working, and then two, that I was, publishing stuff about the battalion, and that they could read their stories about their fellow Marines.
All right, Kevin, throwing that up to you. Sorry, you just heard a massive loud boom. That's the crazy border collie I have going berserk right now. He's funny. But that's not the point. So, Kevin, how many camera cards would you carry on the operations? And first of all, with the cameras you use, how much storage, how many photographs could you put on each card? And I know we've talked about some of this before. And then two, you had a book that you held up there. Is that your little caption book that you wrote things in?
Yeah.
All
I
right.
knew I knew he would recognize it. So this is probably the one he kept in his cargo pocket. And then in my video where I had all my gear
Yep.
out, there were these little tiny green ones that are about that size, and they flip up and it says memo in cursive. That's probably the one he was talking about keeping on the front, right? Am I wrong or am I? Yeah, it makes sense because we all use the same shit. So yeah, this one actually. I still use these. I'm a pilot, so I take these as my flight books out with me. I mean, they're perfect, and they're easy to find, easy to see, and yeah, they're great little books. But yeah, I always had one of these in my cargo pocket, and then I had one of those little memo things. I usually kept mine in my sleeve, I think up here on my shoulder pocket, um, so that I could access it just really quickly. Um, I guess the more convenient places I could have kept it had my stuff like my cigarettes and my lighters. So, yeah, as far as how many cards I would carry, when I first came in, we were all shooting film still. I came in January of '02, and it was all film until about a third of the way through my first duty station. We all switched to digital. And then once I got to Lejeune, there was no film whatsoever. So we started, I think I had the biggest cards that I had in Japan were 512K or something. They were, no, I'm sorry, 512 megs. And that was huge back then, and then once I got to Lejeune, they really forked out for us and they gave us those Canon kits. And I'm pretty sure they had gig cards in them. The 2 gig, yeah, 2 gig cards. And there were like 4 or 5 of them in the kit when it was issued to you. So you had plenty of extras. I had I carried 3 on me at any time. A gig shooting raw on those cameras, I think they were like 12 megapixels or something like that max shooting raw. So I could probably fit like 2 to 3 to 400, depending on, what I was doing on one card. I never really ran out and had to switch my cards, except for on longer operations when we were out for days and days and days. Um, Before I had, he was talking about having my satellite, my satellite and my laptop. Before we had those, I wouldn't have any methods to caption anything. And if I was forward on an operation and I had to get intelligence back, so we would have a resupply helicopter come in from Al Assad, right? And I would run there while they're pulling all the supplies off of it. And I would have a Ziploc bag that I had on my flat jacket with like a torn out piece of paper shoved in it with the CF card. And it would have all of the information written on the piece of paper. I would wrap the paper around the CF card, throw it in this Ziploc, and write, like two fat, what's his name, in Al-Assad. And I would write, like secret or whatever classification that was on it, and I would tell them, like whoever I would give it to, some Marine that was in the back of the helicopter, probably usually a flight crewman. And I would just give it to him and be like, "Hey, this has to get to Al Assad. I wrote the phone number on the little piece of paper there. Just call and contact them, and they'll go ahead and get it for you, and they'll come pick it up from you at the ag bag." And that's exactly what we did. So I never ran out of space necessarily on a card, but I would have to separate from my cards and send them up sometimes before, as I said, before I had a satellite, and I would have to rely on my backups. So yeah. I never really ran out of space per se, but I did have to use my backup cards at times. I never had a card go down. Those things are pretty resilient. So I had cameras break, but never a card.
Well, and now that we've kind of went over what you guys carried and used with the dynamic duo you guys create, of your time and country and the overlap there, how many days would you estimate that both of you work together in the field on operations?
I I know that actually for a fact. Operation Sword was 21 days. And that's not including the time that it took for Kevin and I to get out there and then get back to Al Assad. So all in all, that would be about 24 days ish, 25 days ish.
You were there for like, if I recall, after the operation, you were still at Al Assad for like 3 or 4 days before you took off. So
Yeah,
yeah,
they kept me there, and I think I also just couldn't get on a convoy or get on a flight out. Um, for whatever reason, I can't really remember, but yeah, I ended up sticking it out there. I think also because they did have when we got back from that one, they finally had a lieutenant that was coming in, um, that I was going to be meeting for the first time, and so they actually brought back a bunch of the combat correspondents as well, or the other I should say a bunch, the other two combat correspondents that were with Second Marine Division, and yeah, so yeah, I was there for a little bit. After that, I mean, I think Kevin and I ran into each other a couple more times, maybe.
yeah, I think we did. We passed each other a couple times, but you left like a month or two after that, didn't you?
Yeah, September, I think either 17th or 20. It was around this time actually, 20 years ago.
Mm.
Um, and it was interesting because I ended up getting stranded at Al for a while. I was on the list for the last flight out with the battalion commander, because I mean it's kind of on par with what they do. The battalion commander is always typically the last one to leave. Um, or at least that's the way 3-2 did it. I don't know if that's a normal thing, um, but yeah, and then we got stuck at Al Assad, and I mean everybody else from the battalion was already in Kuwait waiting to go. Um, and yeah, I was looking like I was gonna be in Iraq for just a little bit longer than everybody else. And then something happened. We ended up finally getting on a flight at the last second too. They came like and woke me up and was like, "All right, hey, we're going. We got a flight." And and I ended up being one of the first flights out of Kuwait. So like my road home was actually a lot faster than I thought it was going to be, and a lot faster than other Marines. And I ended up being one of the first homecomings, which was good for me because then I could go to the other homecomings and take photos, which is what I was hoping to be able to do. I didn't want somebody from the rear taking taking my battalion.
Well, to get to that point, and I definitely want to touch on the 20 years as we end today. But what made you two the dynamic duo that it became? Like, I know of the silliness in making people uncomfortable as hell, but in the field on operation, patrol, sweeping houses, what made you two click and work together? How was it the approach you two took to the job that you had working at the battalion level, and going out with the line companies that made it the success that it was?
I'll take this one if you don't mind. I would say how seriously we take life. We spent just under 30 days together. I've spent a week with people and I just can't stand them. I just want to get as far away from them as possible. I don't think we had like one disagreement or argument or I mean we just had fun the whole time and that is our values 100%. Just how seriously we take everything, but also how valuable it was to us. I think, yeah, I think that's probably the best answer I can give. We just got along.
I think from my end too, on top of what Kevin's saying is that we got the job done, um, and had fun along the way. Like, um, getting the job done sometimes is not as easy as it sounds. It's like, oh, it's just taking pictures and video, but I mean, to take quality pictures and quality video and making sure that we're covering everything. I mean, it got to a point like pretty quickly where it was an unspoken thing. Like Kev would like nod at something to like take if I had the video camera, like, hey, get that sort of thing. He'd give me like a little nod or something and phew, start recording. It just became we had our own little sort of system of things and just worked well together. I mean, I think everybody has had that in their life where like they've got that one coworker that they just click, then they just work so well together in the sense that like everything's just seamless. And then, as Kevin was saying, then you have like the opposite of that to compare it to where it's like pulling teeth to get work done or pulling teeth to get to get something completed. And yeah, and it wasn't. I'm not saying that for me it was that way. I mean, I had Neil, who was great, combat cameraman. But yeah, I mean, much like Neil, Kevin was, just easy to work with, and not took things seriously, but not too seriously, obviously, from our stories that we've told you on the last episode there. But it was a pleasure working with you, Kev.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd say the same.
Man, we'd love to see that. Well, thinking of, you two together and in the situations that you're put in, how did you two fit in at the platoon or the squad level? Like, for example, where would you put yourselves in the squad to try to capture the moments when they were happening? Did you constantly switch, maneuver around there? Take me through kind of the process of a patrol or a event you remember of how you guys worked together and documented some of the footage that you did gather.
Much like Kev was talking about, I think in one of them, when you're just by yourself, um, I would kind of put myself in the middle with the squad leader and maybe work my way back with the corpsman, and just kind of walk in the middle of formation. That way, I kind of had a 360 of everything that was going on. I could capture a photo of every Marine in the platoon, or in the squad, not in the platoon, but in the squad. Um, and then eventually, yeah, like Kev said, like eventually you just kind of work your way into being a part of the formation. And they're not going to put you in any situation where you're going to have to make super dire decisions or anything like that, but you're within the formation and walking. So for Kevin and I think we were just rotating in and out between those two. One of us might be like actually in the formation, the other one might be walking in. Both of us might be actually in the formation,
Yeah.
at any given time, and we would try to place ourselves so that we could get the the coverage. But a lot of times we ended up, near each other enough to, especially at the end, we're like, let's just make sure we're just close enough to take pictures, man. I don't know if that is that. Am I
Yeah.
right on that, Kevin?
Yeah, we would
Yeah.
work our way in and out of the tactical column pretty much always. If we were on a patrol, probably like yeah, I don't think there were any real patrols that we did. I think once we took that school, we may have gone on like two or three patrols, but I think we scooted on out of there as soon as the invasion was over and we took fobs. But if I'm remembering correctly, I may be incorrect, but I remember you and me, we had to walk. Like they were like, "Hey, you guys got to go to this other fob," and we were like, "What?" And they
We ended
told us
up
how to get there. We had to leave the wire, just the two of us, and walk through town to get over to the.
yeah, that was I think when we had to go with the army, which I think you showed a photo of that
No, that
big
was a
cat.
different time.
That was a different time.
Wait, did you ride in the Bradley?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, that was that time. Remember the cat? The
Yeah,
cat
yeah.
with the cigarette. Okay.
Yeah. Oh, it was. Oh, I
I,
I think I got rid of that picture though.
I think I have it
Those.
somewhere. I think it's on this hard drive right here.
Yeah, we don't have to go into that. It was a cat with a cigarette in his mouth. Um, that's that's how it ended.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, yeah, yeah. That's I remember that. But no, no, we did actually patrol pretty frequently on that from the pictures that I have uh on it. There's a lot of different. I think we were up and down the city for the most
Yeah,
part,
we
clearing
pushed
with
for
them.
like 18 hours a day, and then we'd crash out for a couple hours, then another 18 hours, and then crash. So we weren't just like when I went to a lot of places like hit, for example, after the invasion, when I went back to hit, we were just running patrols out of a fob, and that's what I did, So every morning I'd wake up, I'd go to the COC, look at the patrol board, and I'd be like, I'm gonna go out with Sergeant Brown's squad today. And I'd go to Sergeant Brown and be like, "Hey, what time are you guys going out?" He'd tell me, and I'll go out with you guys. So it was just really repetitive. I'd go out for like a 6 hour patrol, come back. But with Lou and I and the invasions, I mean, you wake up, you're moving all day, and then you go to sleep, and then you wake up and you're moving all day and you go to sleep. I think we were pretty exhausted by all of it, whether we knew it or not. we were pretty young, so I think we had a, I at least I had a lot more endurance and stamina back then. But yeah, it was rough. We did manage to work our way into the patrols and all of the operations really seamlessly. I remember being complimented a few times. Both of us were, when we were on these operations. We did our job and they did theirs, and that was a good unit in that they facilitated us also. They weren't fussing at us because we were eating their food and calling us pogues. I mean, they just called us pogues. They didn't fuss at us.
In a loving way.
Yeah, because we knew what we were doing. That's the thing. If you go out with the grunts, they're gonna give you shit at first, regardless. But once they see that you know what you're doing, they leave you alone. They'll drop it pretty quick because you're pulling your weight, you're doing your job, and they know that. So
I would always get this too, and I think Kevin might have gotten it as well. You get the grunts that are like, wait, so you get to come out here with us and then go back, and then like if a celebrity comes, you get to be like right up in there and like, damn man, I got the wrong damn job.
yeah, and then I
Like,
would tell them, yeah, but my deployment's 14 months, and then they would change their mind every single time. So yeah, I mean it's a decent job and it has its perks. Every job has its perks. And I think, me personally, I won't speak for anyone else, but I took advantage of the perks of my job at every turn because it was a really lonely and hard job. And those perks are, I think, what kept us alive.
oh, and what ended up being kind of future perks, like being a combat correspondent, combat camera, even you just find yourself in like really kind of cool situations. When I got home, I went to Fleet Week the next year. For those of you who don't know what Fleet Week is, at least in New York, it's a week long sort of celebration of the troops, at least the sea services, Marines, Navy, and Coast Guard. And we kind of take over the city of New York. Like they have a bunch of different events for us. We do like moto runs down Times Square. Like there's all types of different events, and um, I got to go out on that with 10th Marines um, and document Fleet Week for them, and got to meet Hugh Jackman and Halle Berry and Kelsey Grammer. At the time, X-Men 3 was coming out, and they like premiered the movie on shit for us that next night. So I got to meet all three of them. So I mean, those are just like little things. And then like on top of that, um, we get to experience so many different jobs in the Marine Corps, so many different aspects of the Marine Corps. I got to drive a tank. I got to drive an AAV. Get to hang out of a helicopter. I mean, what rifleman gets to do that?
Yeah.
So I feel like at the end of the day, I picked the right job that gave me the most experience and like the larger view of the Marine Corps. Um, and yeah, there were times where I felt bad for them because I'm like, damn, man, this is all you do right here. And they would tell me, they were like, I picked the wrong job. Like, what does it take to lap move over into you? So,
Well, to echo off of that, you brought up the celebrities, and then I'm going to go back to the invasion and combat from the perspective of both of you, at least at that time working together. But Lou mentioned meeting some celebrities. Kev, as a combat cameraman, did you ever get to photograph any celebrities when you were back in the States, or any celebrities that made it to any USO type deals in country?
This is a bad attitude, Kevin. I as an intelligence gatherer, I refused to do this stuff. I would not go cover USO shows. I never really had a chance to go to a USO show. I never had the opportunity. I remember Gary Sinise and Steve Zahn like they came one time on a USO show, but I wasn't there. When I was on ship. I remember someone came and a bunch of sailors and Marines had put together a band. I mean, it was real cheesy. It's like, y'all, we're in the military. Like, we're on a United States military ship, and like, we have this menagerie of of folks up on stage. One of them, this like hillbilly dude with a Confederate flag guitar, and and all of a sudden, like they play a whole show, a whole set, and then this band comes out. I can't even remember. It was someone like Creed or something. And as soon as they came out, I was out of there, man. So, fault me. Maybe I was just being an edgy youth, but I avoided all that crap, as much as I possibly could. I kind of I love the USO as an organization. I resented the USO shows that they gave us, for my own personal reasons. Again, I was just being childish, but yeah, I felt justified in the moment. So no, if I had the opportunity to meet celebrities, I walked the other way. And, they should be wanting to meet me, not the other way around. So, again, I was just being childish, but that was kind of my outlook. I can't say that I've ever actually met a celebrity. I think I've seen them from afar, but I saw one of the uh not Kardashians, but the sisters, the Jenners, one of the Jenners, at Coachella, and she was like 50 feet away with a ton of cops around her. Who goes to Coachella with like this fucking entourage of police officers following them everywhere? Like, who wants to do that? But anyway, that's the only time I've ever seen a celebrity. So no, in short, to finally answer your question, I didn't meet anybody. I didn't really want to.
So, Lou, to echo off of that, any other celebrities you met in your time as a combat correspondent? Because you mentioned pretty three big ones there for the time period that we're looking at. I mean, especially Hugh Jackman and Halle Berry. Kelsey Grammer played in one of my favorite movies of all time. But anybody else?
Nah, it's the big three, man. That's I can't name drop anymore. That's pretty much it. Those are the big three. Um, I will put this out here. I've been not saying it, but I did go to the schoolhouse with the current vice president, and was actually his fire team leader for a while. Yeah, so
So to ask that question, fire team leader, in what sense and in what time frame are we looking at here, Lou?
this is at Dimfo's at the schoolhouse in 2004, like March to June of 2004. And they had us, divided up into squads. I think first, second, and third squad, and then we actually had the Coast Guard living with us, just because there weren't that many of them. So they had their own little squad behind us, and we'd have formations and things like that. And within each squad, there was 2 to 3 fire teams that just kind of looked out for each other, made sure that we're getting back to the barracks on time. Um, and within that fire team leader sort of things, they're just trying to give us experience on leading. So yeah, I ended up leading JD Vance.
So with that interesting and unique connection there. And for those that do not know, the Marine Corps is a small world to begin with, but when you start getting into combat correspondent or POA or combat cameraman, you get into an even smaller world, as these two can attest, very small. So with that being said, are you mentioned in the memoir? I have not read Hillbilly Elegy. I have no idea, but are you mentioned in it?
I'm not mentioned. He, which I'm fine with. It is what it is. No, he went to Cherry Point. I actually ran into him on my way out of Iraq. And they had just gotten there. They were at Al Assad. And I just got to just pop in really quick and see him and say, "Hey, yeah, I've been here. I've been out there." And yeah, I remember it, just being like catching up with an old friend that you saw from the schoolhouse.
So, I mean, and I guess this is going to be um loaded question's not the right word to say. I'm terrible with my words. But did you ever think that in any of your time in the Corps that one of the guys that you were a fire team leader for and
No,
knew this Gate would ever be in a position like this? That's crazy.
no, not to cut you off, but no.
That's wild to
We were
consider.
all goofy, like just the artists of the Marine Corps. Like, how are any of us going to ascend to any, level like that? Like, but yeah, I mean, not to say that, I mean, I it's not discounting anybody's. I mean, we're some of the smartest people in the Marine Corps.
Yes, you are.
Um, and so it wasn't that, but it's just like, how could you even like fathom that somebody could that is going to end up ascending to that position?
To echo off of that, for those that haven't watched mine or don't have to watch mine, but some of the smartest Marines I've ever met, and I've met some incredibly intelligent grunt Marines, but some of the smartest ones I met were combat photographers or combat correspondents in general, just of the personalities that come along with it. I love that. Now, to go back to this of you two working together, and Kevin and I have kind of talked about this most certainly in some of our in-depth conversations, but Lou, you and I haven't. And I'll start with Lou on this one. But from your perspective, what is combat like from your point of view as a combat correspondent working along with Kevin in the situation of an invasion? You know, you've got the supporting arms all around. I mean, and in many ways, this is monumental in terms of documentation. So what is that like from your point of view?
I I think we have the advantage of kind of seeing a larger picture, but at the same time, being 20 years old in Iraq in that situation, I was just getting in where I fit in. That was the biggest thing. I can't say anything sort of tactical in that sense. I don't and didn't have the knowledge of all that. I just tell me where to go, and I'm gonna go there, and I'm gonna do the thing. So and do it to the best of my ability. That was my biggest thing, was just trying to make sure that I captured the story, um, and did it in a way that people would be proud to hang up on their wall someday.
Kevin, to kind of bring in your perspective here as a cameraman, you and I have talked about this too, but working with Lou, what is your approach and perspective to combat? And Lou, I'll come back to this too, because Kevin, the last time I asked you this question, it was where do you draw the line of doing your job as a cameraman to now you are picking up your rifle as a rifleman? So take me through that process there too of what's happening. You're muted, my friend. Kevin, you're muted, babe.
I was saying I don't think either of us shot our rifles on that operation, if I'm not mistaken. We just documented the entire time. There were some pretty risky situations we were in, and there was a lot of fire around us. Um, but we were strictly doing our jobs. We documented constantly. I think that was our focus. All of the joking and the photos that you see, all that aside, that was our way to just cope with the stress and the I don't know, the risk of it all. Just the precarity, I guess, and how volatile I was. I can speak for myself at the time. That was all just coping. But my focus was always on my job. When I was thinking about where I needed to be, my job was always paramount. When I picked what platoon I was going to be with, and even what squad I was going to be with, during any operation or any raid, any whatever, I always wanted to be tip of the spear. It's typically only because that's where it's going to happen. It's not always where it's going to happen, but usually if we're going to get ambushed, they're going to go for the smallest group they can, and that's not at the rear. It's a big wedge that pushes in. So yeah, I would always try to get as far forward as I could. That was the hard part, I think, the hardest part as a lower rank. At that time, I was a corporal. But prior to that, having to get to those platoons and convince whatever unit that I had just met, like he was saying, he's embedded with these guys, he knows them. I just showed up and I'm like, hey, you guys have to let me do my job here. Um, so trying to convince them to let me go to the front was pretty hard. But again, I don't think we had any problems this operation with that. We were both at the very front the entire time. And as far as combat goes, like I said, we didn't fire our weapons at all that I can remember on that operation. And we were definitely focused on doing our jobs. I think some of the best photos I ever took were probably on that operation, and they weren't operational photos. It was just us fucking around. Um, I took a lot of photos of the people, the civilians around. I took photos of their homes, their property, their land. I just took photos of their lives and what was going on, all at the same time documenting our push through their lives. So honestly, I didn't really focus on much more than that. I never really did, except for when, as I said before, if the Marines, if I mean if there's casualties around you, yeah, that's when things get really serious. Up until then, getting shot at, it's pretty exhilarating. It made me laugh. I mean, it made a lot of us laugh. But once someone's hit, that's when the laughs go away. And yeah, coping with all of that. I think both of us had just come off of major operations, so things were things were already stressful for us both. And I think we met each other at the exact right time. I know I can speak for myself again. I know that I needed to meet him when I met him. I needed a friend. I needed somebody who could meet me on my level and just like take life as serious or as unserious as we possibly could, you know?
And
I
that's where
guess
we
that's more of a
insert
human,
the
I guess that's
greatest
more of
band
a,
of all time.
yeah, that's more of my human perspective than my Marine perspective, but that's all Marines are, I mean, we're just people.
You
So
are. Well, and I mean, it's important to break down, the view that perhaps civilians have of Marines through media, and what limited media they have or memes that they've seen. We all know you love your crowns, Kevin. You love the green one. We've already talked about that one. Lou, that's going to be the question we're going to finish with you today when we get there's your favorite crayon. So go ahead and start stewing on that one. But it's to understand that you guys are people, and a multitude of factors there. But in talking with both of you there about your jobs, it kind of just dawned on me with a what if question. If your MOSs still existed today separately, like they did in 2005, what would be something that would make both of your jobs easier now for modern Marines being put into the same situation? What would make the acclimation easier, doing what you needed to do there?
drones, and AI, AI to write captions, AI to fill in voids, to veer in things, to just do all of the stupid menial legwork. And drones would be amazing to have for operations, for raids, for all of that. I mean, if I could put a drone up over a raid and just leave it there while we're on the raid, that would be amazing. Would have aerial footage of the entire raid, not to mention for reconnaissance reasons. I mean, it would just be so easy now that they actually have that stuff. It's we didn't have any of that crap back then. So
I would have loved a GoPro,
yeah.
like a good quality GoPro on my helmet. They had them, not as great quality, I don't think, at the time. But yeah, I would have loved that.
Well, on top of that, and Kevin, I don't think I asked you this. If you got, and I've seen that there's definitely GoPro footage out there of Marines, soldiers, troops in contact with GoPros. Is that something that you are allowed to purchase yourself privately, keep on yourself privately, or if you record on that on operations, does that have to get it sent up to intelligence before it's allowed to go back to you? Like, what was the stipulation there in 2005 with the GoPros?
So if anybody just goes out, that's a really good question, and we did have to address that because as a combat cameraman, all of my photos were, government property. Um, if the average grunt goes and buys a little point and shoot camera and goes out, and they buy them, they take all the photos. Those are their photos. They don't have to do anything. They can sell those photos. They can make money off of those photos. Anything I take with any camera equipment, if you were like, hey, can you take a photo for me? I'll do it and I'll give you your camera back. But technically that photo is property of the US government at that point. So that said, to just kind of add on to that, there were definitely many, many, many times where I missed an operation because of our convoy got hit by an IED one time. A flight went down one time. There were different reasons where I missed a raid or I missed whatever. And I went to the infantrymen who were on that operation, and I was like, "Hey, did any of you guys take photos?" And they'll be like, "Yeah, I got a shitload of them." So they'll bring me their camera. I'll put them on my computer. I'll put their VIRN. I'll put their captions. I'll do all of the work in their name and send their photos up. And they get submitted just like everyone else's. And at that point, those photos are U.S. government property. The ones on their camera aren't. The copies on my computer are. So it's a fine line between them. Anything that I take was official government property, and it should have been sent up. Um, that said, anything operational, I should add that qualifier. Anything operational that I took was very sensitive, but I mean, I took so many personal photos for so many people. And I had my own personal camera. That's what we shot Blood Through the Window on, was my little Canon point and shoot that I had. So yeah, anything operational definitely was government property. Anything not, it wasn't really that restricted. So we did get to keep a lot of our own personal stuff.
Lou, to ask you this same question here. Um, s- in the field that you're in too, with anything that you shoot, even if you had a GoPro, is that also considered government property for the same stipulation as Kevin? And then, for your own perspective there, with the GoPro, did any of the Marines that you guys served with, either as cameraman or POA, have their own GoPros that they carried with them?
Yeah, a lot of the Marines that I was with had their own, like Kevin said, point and shoot cameras. Um, GoPros, I only knew like maybe one or two people. One of them was a sniper, um, and the other one was, I can't really remember, maybe intelligence.
GoPros are expensive.
Yeah, and they were really expensive back then too. Um, I was just wishing that they had issued them to us so that we had them,
Mm.
and because then I could have just let it roll and also take still photos as well at the same time. As far as like the my photos, whether or not they're government property, they are. Yep. But most of my photos actually get released or and are releasable to the public. And once it says, official U.S. Marine Corps photo by Lance Corporal Lucian Friel, quote unquote, release or released, it's officially out there in the public. It's now what's the word or phrase? It's in the public domain. Yeah, and it's out there for anybody to grab and use. I mean, a lot of times, like Kev said, they take it, change the caption, or not give me photo credit. That's all right. No worries. Still embedded on the actual in the actual data of the file, but that's all right. All you gotta do is right click inspect. Um, and I think a lot of times that'll pull it up if it's online.
I thought
Um,
you had to have media grid. That's pretty cool.
yeah, I think I just depends on how it was uploaded.
Mm.
Like if they took a screenshot of it, obviously that erases the metadata. But yeah, yeah, all of my stuff was all pretty much released. Anything that there were a couple operations that I had to go on, and I was the only cameraman there. And I had to fill a little bit of ComCam role on that, whether that's taking pictures of casualties or whatever might come across. Obviously, I'm not releasing those. And so those would get sent up, and a lot of times I would drop them off with ComCam, and God, I hope they got to where they needed to, just based off of that staff sergeant. But yeah, yeah, I would anything that I would take in a ComCam sense, I would send to them and say, hey, like I can't release these here. Send them where they need to go.
Well, and speaking of casualties, I know what the Vietnam policy was, and with the photographers. there and the correspondents there, the photographers could take photographs of casualties, but none of that could be published whatsoever. Like that
Right.
was immediately sent, kept private there. And I know for Steve Bernston, if he wrote a story about a Marine that he intended to publish and that Marine had been killed in action, that story couldn't be published because now the family might allude to the fact that their loved one is still alive, even though they've got a telegram that says otherwise there. Did any of those stipulations apply for either of you where photographs of casualties, wounded or deceased, American, were not allowed, or stories of that nature where a Marine had been killed in action or severely wounded in action were not allowed?
For me, I it was my job to document casualties. I typically did not. Just on moral grounds. If there was a Marine who was down, they were never in my photos. Marines injured, that's a completely different story. Um, so in a way, casualties, yeah, I would take photos, but if there's someone deceased, they're not making it in. Enemies, on the other hand, obviously I had to, I had to get faces if I could, whatever distinguishing marks that I could make out and send it up to Intel. It's how we know when we get, HVIs or high value targets, high valued individuals. A lot of the times that's how we find out. You remember when Zarqawi got killed, that was while I was there. It was because of intel that was sent up and they had analyzed it. There was obviously a coordinated strike, but that's how they confirm these things is not necessarily with combat camera because usually it's like SEALs or somebody and they have all their own equipment that they use for that. But typically. But yeah, it's as far as I am concerned, I didn't do it. I refused to. I never got chewed out for it, never got reprimanded. No one ever said, McCall, you really should be doing this. I think they understood and it wasn't expected. So as far as, being told not to do it, for their families or anything. I think I mentioned before, he was saying a second ago that his stuff, when he finishes his stories, he sends them up to his editor and then they go, for final edits and then they go to the XO. And then, there's a whole, chain of custody where his stuff goes up and it gets edited and sent back. Um, but it goes through his officer, his public affairs officer, who is a clearing authority. We don't have officers in combat camera. We didn't. So we had zero clearing authorities. No one in combat camera could unclassify anything. It just didn't exist. So we had to go through them. Um, there was no reason for me to release anything like that ever, unless public affairs were to request it, and they never did. So.
Lou, going to you on this one, for the stories that you were gathering, much like for the Vietnam guys I've talked to, was there anything off limits for what you could not write about, especially when it came to Marines that had been killed in action, or what were the rules following that if you were documenting a story where a Marine had been killed?
Um, I always tried to at least write something about each of the Marines killed. Um, it was always, obviously after the fact, but also, covering like the Marines would hold a memorial, at the end of an operation if somebody was killed, and that's where you see like the statue of the boots and rifle and helmet with the dog tags draped. And so I would always write a story on that, and I would always try to get, if they were willing to, interview whoever was closest to them within it, and if they were willing to talk to me. A lot of times that wasn't the case, so I would just find the next person that knew them and go from there. I don't know. I mean, I just try to do everything in good taste. I mean, I don't think I can honestly tell you like what was or wasn't like restricted in that category because, like Kevin said, like obviously I'm not going to go like right up on somebody and take their picture if they're, the casualties I was referring to was enemy casualties or civilian casualties, unfortunately, if that happened, but never Marines. And I mean, I was never in a, luckily, never in a situation where I was close enough to actually record that.
Well, Kevin, you're muted. Unmute, Kevin.
I keep doing that. If I could just add to that really quick, we had what was called, they didn't have this back then because they didn't have, computer centers and phone centers and all this shit. So it's a little bit different for us, but we had what was called River City. Anytime a Marine within our unit, and that includes all, sub units, every unit that fell under Second Marine Division, or RCT2 at the time. If a Marine went down, we instated River City for, I think, 3 days, where all of the computer centers were locked down, all of the phone centers were locked down, and Nipper, the unsecured internet was locked down. So you couldn't send emails, you couldn't send phone calls, you couldn't do any of that because they didn't want the Marine's family finding out through word of mouth, or hey, hey, sweetheart, such and such happened today, and then she calls somebody who calls the family. They really wanted to prevent that. So the big guard that they put in place for that instance for our generation was River City. It's called River City. I don't know why they named it that, but I remember the base going under River City constantly. If you were in the computer center on the computer, all of a sudden it just, your internet was out and everyone had to leave. Yeah, that's just how it was. So it was pretty regular, and that is kind of the first wall that the first defense that we put up for keeping families, keeping that chain of information, between the Marine Corps and the family proper. We need to keep it as secure, handle the situation in the appropriate way, and I think River City was the best way we could do that with the technology that we had of the day.
Well, and in many ways, you bring up an excellent point there that if the family is going to find out about this, it needs to be through official means first. A chaplain, an officer representing the branch of service being there to support and console the family, but deliver the information instead of it possibly being photograph leaks. I know that happened some, I believe, early in the war, if I'm not mistaken, where some through Al Jazeera or some other branches, families were able to learn before and see the awful truth of the death of their loved one
Yeah.
there. And I can understand and completely support the security measures put into place there to prevent that and keep that anonymity there. And then, today is a shorter one due to some time restrictions for a couple of us here. I won't say for everybody, but I'm going to pull up a photograph that's not related to you guys, but it's just to talk about what happens. But these are some of your predecessors, and the reason I'm pulling it up is it made me question it. But these are some of your predecessors having a beer. 1968, that's my very good friend Steve Bernston there. But these correspondents who sometimes dabbled in as a cameraman, Dell dies in this photograph. I can't remember where exactly. But did you guys as cameramen and correspondents ever get together for a big photo op while you guys were in country together? Or it was just one of those things that was missed out on?
I uploaded a couple. They're on the share drive
Of everybody together?
of my team. Yeah,
Oh shoot.
not everybody, not the public affairs guys, but the combat camera team. There were two guys that were up from Ramadi also. So our combat camera team, the four of us, and then two other combat cameramen came up to Al Assad, and I think they were going on their R&R, and we ended up taking those photos outside of the CP where we were.
Yeah, I have a couple photos of me and the other combat correspondents. And then also with kind of variations of it, like me, another combat correspondent, and another combat cameraman, Neil. So there's a few handfuls there. I don't think we ever just really had the opportunity where we were all together to be able to do that, or even maybe I don't know, the desire to do it. Because some of us knew each other and others didn't, never ran into each other.
Well, the goal, and I'll let Kevin chime in if Kevin's got something to say. The goal that I kind of told Kevin, I hope this kind of inspires a ad hoc reunion of those of you that do know each other and feel comfortable to meet up here soon, because I know that I've been fortunate to help give that spark to some other veterans, and I'm hoping that that trickles down here. But, second to last question for today. It is 20 years ago. How does it feel for you guys to look back and realize this is 20 years ago? Where, I see the eyes, I see, the facial features that I can recognize for 20 years ago. But how does it feel for this to be 20 years since 2005 and you guys were in country together?
My back hurts.
Yeah, it's a
My
little
knee's fucked.
yeah, it's a little surreal, you know.
Yeah.
But it's just crazy that it just so happened that this is the year. You know, you could
Hmm.
have reached out to us 2 years ago.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been 20, but here it is, 20 years later. Like almost like again
Almost exactly.
almost
Yeah.
exactly, just a little bit over 20 years. So we've already reached that mark. But yeah, the good round 20.
And I didn't I made that connection, I think, on the second interview where Kevin and I were really hitting things off. And I didn't pick up on that until he started naming dates and times and places. And I was like, wow, that is odd. Fate is interesting how things align the way that they do there, and I'm blessed to be able to do this. And then technically, I lied. This will be the second to last question. Since it has been 20 years, what would be your theme song 20 years ago? It can't be the band song, this grammar hearing band that we've heard. Got to be, what would be a theme song from
I know the theme
2004 to
song.
5?
I know the theme song
Oh,
too.
no, oh
Oh,
boy.
he's probably got a different one from me, but I know, and I'm gonna send you the link right now.
I
Hold on. It's this video
don't
on
know if I'm allowed to
YouTube.
play songs, but you know what? I might as well if I get copyrighted. Oh well.
Well, it's not. I doubt this is copyrighted. I might have to find it and come back with you,
I
or
think you
come
can
back
play
to
up to
you.
10 seconds of it.
Hey, hey, I'm glad somebody knows that. Thanks, Lou.
Oh, I think I found it. No, I didn't. Okay,
I'll,
there's a video of this guy. He calls himself Jellyman. Jellyman, and I can't remember. I think it was Gelli, but he wrote this song called Aisha, and it was one of the most awful things I've ever heard in my life. But it was he sang it and it was terrible, and he was like 14, nerdy, had his acne, and he was like wearing this oversized sweater. And he's singing this song about this girl named Aisha. And for some reason, in some little girl's bedroom the whole time he's singing. I'm talking like little girl. There's like toys and princesses and shit all over the place. It was weird. But that video, it went viral back then, man. And we probably listened to that shit, I mean, 300 times. I don't know. I mean, I know Lou heard it. I don't know if he remembers it because this was very much an Aliside thing. If you were at Aliside and you were at Combat Camera, you heard Jellyman singing Aisha. It was bad too.
I know you guys had to have played it for me
We did. Oh, I found it. Oh no,
because
that's
that's like everyone
foresight.
like shares reels now or like DMs each other's reels. I mean, back then you were literally sitting down in front of a computer, like, oh, watch this video, and like
Yeah.
looking it up and like looking it up on you. Yeah, was YouTube? Yeah. Well, yeah, around that, right? YouTube's 20 years.
Yeah.
I think it was
I
really
think.
starting
Yeah,
to take
yeah, it
off.
was around then. Oh,
Uh,
I did
I
found
I would say it could be a song from Team America World Police
it.
would be
Yeah.
another one, but not just America, fuck yeah, like, but
The country
uh,
one.
yeah, the country one. What would you do if
If you
you
were
were
asked to
asked
give
to
up your
provide
dream
for
for freedom.
freedom?
That's I just put the link in the chat for Jellyman. You guys if you're at home, it is Gellieman and the song is Aisha. It's Aicha. I recommend watching it. It's a work of art. It's something. Poor Jellyman. That's all I hope he got the girl. And I hope she was older than 6 because that bedroom was creepy, man.
So to echo off of that, and there's some absolute bangers. First of all, they got thrown around in 2005. This is where I start feeling like I start coming through as this like edgy teen. I know that makes you guys feel super old. I hate that. I'm real sorry. Um, but it is interesting. First of all, I love the Team America. Okay, can't go wrong with that. Classic. If you have not watched that movie, you guys are absolutely missing out. I love the animations of it. But, to end this one out, today, before I go through my typical end that I have here, Kevin loves a green crayon. Says that that is the absolute best flavor of crayon. And if we're going to play off this association with Marines, Lou, what is your favorite flavor of crayon?
Okay, well, am totally against this idea that we eat crayons. Um, no, blue, probably.
Yeah, he has an answer.
Yeah. That's the thing is like, although I am against it because I'm tired of the idea that Marines are all dumb, we are some of the smartest people.
I mean, to go
Now,
off
don't
the
get me wrong. I've
smartness.
met some rocks in my time in the Marine Corps, but even like like grunts get a bad rap of just being like rock breakers or whatever. But like, dude, I met some of the smartest people
Yeah.
in the infantry. 0311s, just geniuses. And I'm like, what are you doing, dude? Like, you should be in intel or like joining the CIA or some shit like that. But no, yeah, blue is probably the best just because of the sky.
That's a solid answer there. I mean, can't go wrong with the color of the sky. Blue's pretty appetitable to me. I don't even know if that's a damn word or not. Sorry, Kevin. Green reminds me too much of the things I threw up in college, and I just can't do that. But when you speak of the smartness of Marines, not to keep you guys any longer, but you're right though. I mean, how many Marines have turned their lives into successful businessmen. I mean, FedEx, regardless of anyone's personal take on FedEx, you can't fault Fred Smith, who was a platoon leader, if I'm not mistaken. I don't know if he eventually became a skipper, but a platoon leader for 3-5 in 1968. You have some of the more profound writers that even you guys talked about earlier, that have turned their experiences into excellent writing careers as writer. Carl Melantis is one that comes to mind for me. Um, I have students who shit on Marines for eating crayons, and I don't support that joke by no means. I didn't serve, but I'm not one of those people that throws that around. I'm like, look, I said, y'all can make that joke, but I said, would you ever say it to a Marine's face? And I said, number two, talk to a Marine, especially some in the '03 series, and you will realize they are far from the dumb people that you think they are. Ron Christmas, who ended out as a lieutenant general, was a company commander in Waste City, and I was fortunate to interview him, and I'm fortunate to know him. But he said some of the smartest people he ever met were his inner city riflemen who turned the advantage of knowing a city and helping them out and understanding the city and urban environment in 1968 when they were fighting through Way. He said you would have never understood unless you had been there to see the brilliance that these kids 18, 19 years old were able to come up with, and people don't give them enough credit, let alone enough pay for what they do.
Yeah, that's true. All of us hillbillies from the South that went to Iraq, those people were hillbilly as hell too. So I think we got along really well with it. Not, I won't say the dumber you were because it definitely isn't a dumb thing for us or them. But just that the simplicity of your lifestyle really, really is deceiving. A lot of people will see that especially here where I live now. You know where I'm at, so it's kind of like here, when people hear that I'm from the South, they give me the side eye. And then when I say I'm a veteran, they give me more side eye, and then it keeps getting more and more, and to where they're finally looking at me with the back of their head walking away. So they don't really give you the chance. They think they know everything there is to know about us, and they push forward. That said, I'll always make the crayon joke because I enjoy laughing at myself almost as much as I enjoy laughing at other people. So I embrace it and I'll always push it. I think it catches a lot of people off guard when you first meet them and you make that joke because they're like, okay, this person's either humble or they're stupid. And you can just prove to them that you're humble by proving that you're not stupid. So I mean, it opens doors. It's an icebreaker, and that I've just kind of always embraced it as such.
That's an excellent way to put that. And unless you guys have any further commentary for today for this short, but in my opinion, a great interview of bringing you two together, the dynamic duo. If you guys had to pick a superhero dynamic, who would you be? and why? And that's that. And I'm gonna tell you the way I always end it, but you both have to give me an answer here.
As to who we both are?
In general, if you had to pick a superhero dynamic that you think represents who you are, I know you both are, but which one you think you guys like to be, Batman and Robin? I'm not a big superhero guy, but I think it's an interesting question. Like, what is the legendary dynamic duo that you guys would associate yourself with? Tenacious D, if you're into Tenacious D, big fan there of the little rock albums they put together. I don't know. Thought that'd be an interesting question for today.
Hmm. Probably Lex Luthor and General Zod. No, I'm trying to think, man. That's a really good question.
Joker and Raptor Man.
Yeah, probably. Honestly, yeah, that fits it, man. That was our experience. We went through as a team, even though we technically weren't a team, and we became one, and it worked really, really well. So yeah, I mean that sums it up all in all, yeah.
So what I just got out of that is that you've got the camera angles. Lou, you've got the storytelling. You both recreate Full Metal Jacket, but for a modern era and a parody, make a best-selling hit off of it and become billionaires with this excellent indie or third-party little small company movie production. I think that's a great idea.
Being a billionaire sounds like that is a great idea. Let's do that because
You're welcome.
I could use that about now.
Well, that's why I didn't say Batman because neither one of us are billionaires, so
We're millennials, man. We'll never be
we'll
billionaires.
never be billionaires.
God, tell me about it. Maybe one day, but definitely not today. Um, Gentlemen, without a doubt, this has been a blast the past two times, and I hope that we do get to bring some more of the mutual friends you guys have onto this, especially adding a third party. There's other stories that
Yeah.
will jog more of your memories as we kind of saw last time. But before I end this out, officially for both of you, like I said, thank you for your service, fellas. But most importantly, welcome home.
Thanks, man. Thank you for yours. I appreciate this.
Yeah, thank you.